You are considering purchasing new construction in the greater Houston area, then tune in to this video. Hey, y'all, what's going on? Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team here in Houston. What I wanted to talk about today is the new construction and builders here in the greater Houston area. We are currently seeing that builders are offering more incentives to new home buyers than they were in months and years past. And that's basically because new home prices have dropped, days on market have increased, and the market is a little bit more normal than we have seen over the past 12 months. So, what I'm going to do is dig into a couple different articles here. This is a Yahoo Finance article that is basically breaking down what's happening here in Texas with new home construction. And so Homes USA is a company that lists homes for builders in the MLS, and that's what pushes them out to all of the different websites where you're looking at homes. And so they basically broke down a bunch of data. And so we're going to go over that today and talk about what's happening in Houston and anecdotally what we're currently seeing in the market. So what we're first going to take a look at is days on market. And so what this is how long homes are sitting on the market when they're listed. And so when we look at Houston, we are seeing that days on market for October 2022 was 63.88 days. And that's up a little bit from earlier this year. Basically, the lowest point that it was at was in August, which was 59.41 days. It was still pretty low at 60 days in July of 2022. But if we look at the year over year time frame, it's basically stuck anywhere between 59, 60 days up to anywhere around 74 days. If we're looking at the statewide average, so for all of the different cities here in Texas, the statewide average for the month of October is 55 days. Here in Houston, 63 days is a little bit longer. And so why days on market is important is that's how long the builder has a home on the market once they put it into the MLS until it goes under contract. And so the longer the time that it's on the market, generally a little bit antsier that they get as far as wanting to make sure that it goes under contract, right? And that they are able to sell it. And so why we're starting to see days on market creep up is a few things. One, with interest rates increasing, purchasing power has been decreased for a lot of buyers. But also, now that buyer demand has decreased, we are also seeing that for new construction homes, builders are starting to actually build homes. So when we look back to 2021, last year in the market, and even earlier this year, a lot of builders weren't building inventory homes. So basically, an inventory home is when they take a lot, they say, hey, we're going to put this particular floor plan on this lot, and we're going to build it with pretty standard finishes, maybe a couple upgrades here and there, but the things that most buyers would appreciate and like, and build this home and then put it on the market to sell for anyone to purchase. And so that's an inventory home. And the difference in, 6 months to 12 months ago, since they had so much demand, they were really only selling properties that had a contract. So you would raise your hand and say, hey, I want a house. And they would say, hey, well, here are the 3 lots that are available and the homes that could go on those lots. Do you want this home? Right. So the builders had a lot of power at that time. And now with all of the things that are happening, they don't have as much power. So they are building these inventory homes, and we're starting to see days on market tick up. The other thing that you can see when you're looking at this chart over here on the left, Houston days on market is the longest as compared to San Antonio, compared to Dallas, Fort Worth, and then Austin, which has the lowest days on market. But that's been the same since, what looks like October 2020 on this chart to today, right? So it's not like Houston suddenly jumped up and now their days on market is a lot higher or something like that. One thing that I do find interesting is Austin was at 18.2 days on market back in October 2021. And this year it's at 32.42 days on market. So pretty significant jump there for the Austin area. But all in all, days on market have increased across the state. Depending on the city, the impact, is or isn't as significant as others. But days on market was the first thing that I wanted to look at. The number 2 thing that I wanted to take a look at are the amount of new home sales. So when we take a look at this chart over here on the left, again, we have Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Houston has the most amount of sales, Dallas trickling right behind us. And then down here at the bottom, we've got San Antonio and Austin. Obviously, the Houston area and the Dallas area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, have a lot of land and a lot of area that they cover. The Austin market and the San Antonio market just don't have as many homes for sale and areas that are being built in. We always have more inventory here in Houston, and Dallas does as well. So when we're looking at the amount of new home sales in the month of October 2022, there were 1,520 new home sales here in the greater Houston area, which actually was a slight tick up from the previous month. So in September, we had 1,373. August, we had 1,442. July, we had about 1,500 sales. And then over the summer months and earlier this year, March through June, we had like 16 to 1,800 sales per month. And so we've seen a little uptick here in October, generally speaking, based on like the days on market, right? And how long it takes to close. If you were to go under contract today, you're not going to close today. You would normally close in 30 to 45 days, sometimes 60 or 90, depending on when that home will be ready. A lot of the homes that closed in October probably went under contract in July and August. So this is just taking a look at the new home sales and what is currently selling in these markets. I think a couple things to think about if you're a buyer. Obviously, if you were a buyer that closed back in October, this doesn't apply to you, but you probably aren't watching this video. So if you're thinking about purchasing new construction today, I think the thing to ask is if you're able to lock an interest rate. A lot of builder lenders or preferred lenders for a builder are offering extended rate locks. They're offering lower interest rates or things like that. But if they're offering something that's maybe 1% or 2% lower than the current market interest rate, are you able to lock that rate today and hold that for the next 30, 60, 90, or even longer time frame to ensure that you are able to actually get that lower rate? Because if you get quoted it today, but you can't get that in 6 months, then it doesn't really matter. So that'd be something that I would take a look at. But it is interesting that the new home sales are starting to tick up in Texas overall throughout the major markets. And I think part of that is because of, builder incentives and different things like that builders are offering. So they're starting to offer, especially right now at year end, different incentives for closing costs, different incentives for the design center, if that applies to the particular home, perhaps an interest rate buy down or a lower interest rate. So always good to check in on that to see what is being offered by particular builders. Next up that we are going to take a look at are the new home sales prices. When we look at this chart over here on the left by city, Austin has the highest new home sales prices, Dallas following behind, then Houston, and then San Antonio pulling up the rear. We know this as far as Austin goes, that the home prices there have been significantly higher than the rest of the state, just with all of the people that are moving down to the Austin area. DFW, obviously popular, and a lot of businesses have been moving there. We've got Houston and then San Antonio. So the statewide average right now for a new home is sitting at $463,000. Here in Houston for October 2022, we're at $429,205. That's slightly up over the actual average home price here in Houston that was sitting at around $403,000 for the greater Houston area for all homes. And so new construction itself is at $429,000. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive, likely, to purchase a new construction home than it would be to purchase a resale home. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking at purchasing a home, it will likely be a little bit more expensive than a resale home. One thing that's interesting to me when you look at the pricing on like the year over year basis, and when you look at Houston as a whole, there have been some ups and downs as far as pricing. Like last October, it was at 404, then it went down to 395, up to 397, stayed around the same, up, 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 up. And so new construction home prices are still going up. We've started to see some builders, like slash prices or offer discounts or do different things like that. But all in all, most prices are still increasing. And so when you look sometimes at a builder's, deal that they're giving you on a price, if it's a $450,000 list price and they're giving it to you for $430,000, it may still be an increase because the last home could have sold at $420,000, right? That's something when you're working with a realtor, we're able to take a look at what properties have sold that have been in the MLS, if they've conceded on price, And also from our knowledge of working with builders and working with different communities, we know sometimes that, some builders or some communities are a little bit more open to those negotiations than others. So my advice to you, if you're considering new construction, would be that the list price isn't always the list price. There could potentially be some negotiation opportunity there. So with that being said, the next thing that I want to take a look at is the sales price to list price ratio. And basically what this means is if a home's listed for $450,000, how much of that list price is the builder getting? And so when you look again at Texas as a whole, we've got basically over here on the far right-hand side, anywhere between 99% down to 98% of list price to sales price ratio. Here in Houston for the month of October, it was a 98.14% sales price to list price ratio. And so basically what that means is buyers got almost 2% off the list price of the property. So again, if we're looking at a $450,000 house, people were paying on average maybe around $441 for that $450K house. So they are able to get a little bit of a discount. And again, that's going to vary depending on builder, depending on if the home's ready or not, depending on the community, a lot of different things, but we're able to take data like this for whatever neighborhood you may be looking in, for whatever builder you may be looking in, and really hone in and see if there's potential for that negotiation. Again, we've got a lot of connections with builders. If they're looking to close out a community, they may be a little bit more open to negotiations. If they have more homes available in a community, they may be a little bit more open to negotiations. So there's a lot of different things to consider. It's not just a one size fits all. This is the number. You're going to pay 98% of list price. It can vary depending on the community. Finally, the last thing that I wanted to take a look at is the amount of active listings that are currently on the market. And so this differs a little bit from the new homes. The new homes report that we looked at previously was the sales and what had sold. And then when we look at this one, this is the active listing. So what's currently active on the market. And so we have seen a pretty big jump. Houston here is up at the top. Again, we normally have more inventory and more homes available on the market than our friends in DFW, than Austin and San Antonio, right? So we can see, obviously, there's been some larger variances between us and DFW over the past 2 years, but we've always been significantly more inventory than Austin or San Antonio. And so what we're looking at here is this has been a pretty steady climb over the past 12 months, going from about 7,700 active listings on the market to now here in October, we have 11,115 active listings on the market. So again, this provides opportunity to you as a buyer. If you are looking to purchase a home, there's more inventory available on the market. It's sitting a little bit longer. So builders may be a little bit more likely to potentially provide incentives for, again, design centers, credits towards closing costs, things to buy down your interest rate and stuff like that. So if you are considering new construction in the greater Houston area, please reach out. We would love to chat, talk about what you are looking for, how our team can help you to find your new home. We'll talk to you soon. Hope you have a great day.